Hello and welcome to Impact Conversation, where we have meaningful dialogues with both local and international leaders. These are leaders who are actively involved in their communities and they're innovative thinkers and they're making an impact in the work that they do. Today we have a special guest with us. She is an experienced charity manager. She does both online and in-person training. She's a project manager and fundraiser and event organizer with more than 2 decades in the sector. She is skilled in creating and implementing strategies and bringing about practical, positive changes to whatever she does. Today we have Karen Jefferys, and we are happy to have you, Karen. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's been a long time for us to arrange this meeting, but I'm just so happy for you to join us. Now, a lot of people will want to know who is Karen and why is Karen having this conversation with me. Who is Karen?
Well, it was a pleasure to meet you, Craig, at one of our events. I think it was a joint event that we did, wasn't it?
Yes, in Crystal
earlier
Palace.
Earlier in the year. So, and then things have just developed and we've got to know each other just a little bit more. So it's a delight to be able to be part of the work that you're doing. And I hope there's just a few little bits that might be of interest to people as we get the conversation going, really. So, you asked who am I? I'm lots of different things, like most people. You know, family life is really important to me. And then my work has always been about trying to bring about positive change for groups, whether I'm working directly with the group or in this case now, job that I'm doing now is to support other groups to really improve, particularly around the area of fundraising. But that often involves lots of other bits that they need to, work on. It's a really varied job. It's really enjoyable. Family, work, and then I volunteer a lot. I just stepped down from being a trustee of a group, but I will be continuing to be heavily involved with that. So lots of different aspects to my life, but those are just a few headline areas.
Family plays a vital role, as you said. So tell us about family for you. What does family mean?
Yeah, it's funny because I've kind of come back to my roots in working in the Lewisham borough, because that's where my dad's side of the family came from, and we'd often spend weekends visiting there. Lots of fond memories. You can probably see my eyes, your eyes go back when you're trying to remember all the different things, and, came from a very big family. So, there were lots of great aunts and uncles, all kind of living in each other's pockets. And it was really nice seeing how they, supported one another. They weren't particularly affluent. And that hard time, that they must have gone through post-war and then coming out of that and then having grandchildren and stuff like that. So, just really nice to see how they supported one another. And then on my mum's side, a much smaller family, lived at quite a distance, but really good to see them. And so, you've got that's where you've come from, and that's what you want to maintain going forward. So, now it's, my husband's family, my family. I live across the road from my parents, and we live very close to my husband's side of the family. So, that's, I think, having that support structure, knowing where you sit within a family, can be really, really is part of who you are, isn't it? It's part of how you see the world, that you're looking out for one another, and that you really value, and you celebrate those birthdays together, or you celebrate different things together.
So we talk about that family. I've always admired your funny side, your really lively, bubbly side. And I just wondered, what was Karen like as a child?
Yeah, probably a bit of a cheeky chappy there as well. Yeah, I think, quite. It's really it's hard, isn't it? Because you don't normally talk to people about how you were as a child and stuff like that. I think I was reflecting on this. I did wonder if you'd ask me about this, and I was thinking about how well, I went to a very small village school. So I live in a town, but the village is like is about 15 minutes walk away. So we used to go to the village school, and it was there wasn't enough pupils to have like one per year. So you'd have 1.5 years in a class. And so I would be with my friends for some years, and then other parts of the year, like half the class would move up. So I was with my friend, then I was just like plunged into not my friends, people who are older than me. And I think that has made me probably quite able to adjust. I've needed to be able to adjust in my relationships, make friends quickly, um, and try to maintain friendships even at a bit of a distance. So yeah, I think that that might be something that has shaped my my desire to try and be inclusive of people, because I know what it's like to be, just thrust into the classroom, and schools are funny things, aren't they? You get thrust into a whole group of people that you've got to try and get along with for quite a lot of time.
Yeah.
And you're stuck with them day in, day out. So yeah, I think that's probably had a bit of an influence on how I've tried to be friendly. And if you see sort of somebody on the edges, trying to involve them, because of that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've definitely seen that where, you just have that feeling when you're around you just get involved with everybody, and it's good to see that happening. And no doubt being in a situation where you have to be mixing, help you with what you're doing over the past couple of years. So, was there anyone who significantly in your younger days impacted you to where you are? You could look back and think that person had a great impact on me.
Yeah, I suppose obviously your parents have a massive impact on you. And my dad is hilarious. He's an electrician, and so I go out on working with him, and he's very proud of me. So as he was sort of talking to the the person where we're doing the rewire or whatever, he'd kind of go, yeah, Karen knows all about this, and she's great and stuff. And he's so over egg like how good I was. And it was bad, because I don't know how to rewire a house, just in case anybody is looking for an electrician. That's not on my CV, and you would be in real trouble if I did. But yeah, so having that belief is in somebody, and yeah, I think that obviously is really instrumental, isn't it? Yeah, and then my mum, much more of a quieter character, um, a more calming influence. But yeah, still that friendly element to her as well. So yeah, I think those two are obviously key ones, and they're quite an obvious one. But yeah, different points in your life, it's different people, isn't it? Like people who believe in you, people who want the best for you. So, there are different teachers who have been really positive or negative. There was also a chap who helped me, think about faith as well. So
Oftentimes when I have this conversation with people, it has always been a similar thing where someone have spoken that belief in you. So your dad, constantly saying, yeah, Karen knows it. No doubt did something for you, building your confidence, even though you know you weren't that good, but it made you feel like you could do anything once your dad, believed in you. Would you say that you are more like your dad than your mom as you look back?
Yeah, people say that I look like my dad, which is problematic because he's got quite a lot of stubble. But yeah, so physically, like people go, oh, I can tell. Okay, you're your dad's daughter, aren't you? So yeah, physically, but also there's a lot that I've taken from him. There's a lot that I haven't taken from him as well. Yeah, I think there's an appreciation there from me that of people who are more quiet and who are a bit more, it's not all out there as well, and that's from my mum's side as well. So there's that funny saying, isn't there, that you're the amalgamation of your top 5 friends.
Yeah.
And so I suppose that plays into this, that it's about appreciating those different character types, and pulling them in and working out, well, do I want to be like that or do I not want to be like that? So yeah, I think that's all kind of added to the kind of cake mix of who I am.
You also mentioned about faith. I know lots of people who have, that is part and parcel of who they are and what makes them. And with faith, makes them have that belief in themselves and in others and being charitable. And you work in the charity organization where you're giving back so much. How much does faith play in you being, in your job that you do now?
Yeah, I mean, it is inspirational. It's the reason that I went into the charity sector. So when I came out of uni, I finished a history degree, and I was thinking to myself, oh, what do I do now? I'd quite like to work for a museum, and I needed money, so I realised that actually going into the museum sector is really hard, because often people love their jobs and they don't tend to leave. So I thought, well, if I can't do something that I want to do, I'll do something that I believe in. And so that was the inspiration for starting a Christian charity in Southwark. And so that started me down a path of working in the charity sector. And the job that I do right now, I'm working with people of all faiths and none, and that's a real privilege. I really enjoy the variation in that. So obviously, the organisation I work for now, there's no element of talking. There's not really an element of talking about my faith, but it inspires me. So it is the reason that I want to bless the groups that I'm working with. I want them to live life to the full. I want good things for Lewisham. I want good things for where I live as well, beyond. So all of that, I think, yeah, it's going to shape how you do things, isn't it? It's going to shape how you want to make sure that in a room where we're having a discussion, you involve the quieter person, or you want small groups that often at a disadvantage with funders. You want to point out to the funders within what I'm allowed to do, but point out, like, if you have a deadline that's next month and you announce it with only a month to go, a part-time worker will not have time to apply for that. I'll be sort of pushing it back against that, because I don't feel that that's what God would want. He would want us to live justly.
Yeah. I must come back to the charitable work and the faith based. But you mentioned and when I was looking at your CV, you did history, and I heard you talk about wanting to go into the museum, and it brought me back to something I read recently, that a lot of people would go to uni and do studies of what they really love, But then when the reality of it is that, you come out of university, that love you realize is not becoming a reality because, as you said, there are lots of people who are still wouldn't give up their job in the museum, and it's hard to get into that field. Would you say that's something you can relate to in, doing history and not being able to, well, maybe it's fate or, your direction part, but wasn't able to get into that field and it's not easy to get in?
Yeah, it's a hard question. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer it properly, but I suppose for me, I don't want to ever look back with regret at stuff. So I don't regret not going into the museum stuff. I was where I was at. I made a decision, and if you don't come from a place of having loads of money, you need to make practical decisions. So I made a practical decision. I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm not going to waste time regretting it. If I wanted to change it, I'd go and start looking for jobs now in that sector. But I think regret is a bit of I don't want to get caught up in bitterness or regret. I don't, we've got a short time on this earth. Let's make the most of it and live positively.
It wasn't so much.
Did I answer that? No, obviously not.
It wasn't so much of a regret, but do you see that that can become? I'm just thinking about children of today or people who are leaving school and thinking about the future, but that they're not really so much thinking about the future. Parents wanting their children to go into this field, but the reality is that long gone are the days when you want to be a doctor, nurse, a lawyer, teacher, but now you have podcasting and you had YouTube and all those things that we wouldn't in our days think about as being a career, but the career is there. So are we aiding our children or people to go into where the jobs will be, or focusing on what the studies might be when you come out of university? You can't get a job. That's the sort of thing that I was thinking about as you talk about, doing that, and not that you're regretting your choices, but can relate to it in terms of seeing that you did a study here, but even if you did that now, it would be hard to get into that field.
Yeah, I think I could definitely have done with some careers advice sooner. But I think we live in the pace of change feels like it's got quicker. The treadmill has got quicker. So there's that kind of balance, isn't there, between doing vocational courses that will lead to one particular role, but actually the world is so quick. Are you gonna miss out? Or do you do more of a theoretical thing like history or English or something like that can lead to lots of different jobs and can be applied in lots of different ways? And so that I think is always going to be a bit of a tension, the vocational of theoretical. And I suppose there are some, my understanding limited, there are some things like, say, a social worker vocational course.
Yeah.
That is probably going to be quite a stable, that job will probably continue to be there well into the future, even if AI takes over lots of other things and stuff like that. And I suppose it's how much you want to keep your options open and open and open. But at the end of the day, you only need the one job for yourself. So,
and jobs are changing, fast. And, as I said before, thinking of a YouTuber would be not something you think as a career, but this is where, life is. Going back to, using your faith in your work world where, it's not something that, and I know as a teacher in schools, it's not something you can openly talk about and share with children if you're not in a faith school, that is. But you can use those principles to teach lessons and morals and values to children. But the same way you're using those in your career or in your work to develop others. So, yeah. So, your work now involves helping lots of people in gaining support and funding for what they do. Tell us about that work that you do.
Okay, yeah. So I work for London Borough. Well, no, not for the borough itself, but for a charity that then helps other charities, CICs, CIOs. So those are different legal entities that are charitable. And I help them with their fundraising. And because fundraising can be really varied, that can be applying to grant making trust, helping groups to apply to statutory organisations, individuals, and lots of different kinds of fundraising. So there's a whole plethora of different ways people can do fundraising. The way that I do that is through things like one-to-ones. And I've just done some coaching and mentoring training. So that's hopefully going to really just bring that up another level. One-to-ones. I do learning days where we have workshops that are really kind of practical, where people are taught a bit, then they do a bit, taught a bit, do a bit, and so on. So on different subjects like fundraising, something called theory of change, measuring the difference that you're making. I did one on soft skills for fundraising as well. So yeah, learning days. I do these sessions where groups come and look at fundraising books. So what I try and do is, there's loads more as well, but I try and provide a range of different options for groups. And, hopefully there's something in it for everybody so that they can pick and choose which bits work for them. Because I'm serving a range of different groups that will be at different stages, and some will know different elements of fundraising. That seems to work really well. And I'm, just keep monitoring that in different ways to make sure that I'm still scratching where people are itching.
There are lots of, would you say you find a lot of people are doing a lot of great things in their community, but are hampered by funding? And if we get it right, would see a great impact in our communities?
Yeah, I think there's a number of issues for small groups. Funding is one of them. And there's like this jigsaw puzzle, which is why it's not a silver bullet. So sometimes people are like, oh yeah, if only I had a load of money, but actually, you need to have quality people in place. Not quite, the finance person doesn't have to be good at graphic design, but you have to have, if you're a CIC or a charity, like trustees or board members or staff members who know about, looking after the finances, people who know about HR. There's so many different elements, and for a small group, that's really hard to have expertise in all those different areas. So I think there's stuff around whether some small groups have researched enough. This isn't a popular view, okay, I know that, but some small groups I think would do well to think about whether they would be better serving the people that they want to serve by collaborating with others or merging with others. It's about having the right heart. Are you in it to build up your own name, or are you in it to actually help the end people? So if you're in it to help the end people, you won't mind that it's not your name on the name of the charity or whatever. And I think it's really sad when you see these groups kind of starting out very eager, and just then that realization, like, this is really hard, there's so much to do, I need policies, I need procedures. And maybe if they'd joined another group sooner, that bigger group could have shared that burden early on, and then they would have been able to do the stuff that they love doing and serve the people that they want more. But yeah, funding is certainly one thing that holds back impact, but it's not the only thing. If that was taken out of the equation, there might still be other issues that needed dealing with. And that's why I work with my colleague who helps groups with some of those other things.
Is there probably, I don't know if this is something you do or looking at, is how you can join organizations together. If you can notice that this one and this one could both come together and have a greater impact, is that scope for that, or is there something to look into, or is it down to these individual organizations to find their links and come together?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think when, the organisation I work for, we've got a community directory, so groups can find out about other groups for themselves. Sometimes by the time a group comes to me, they say, "Oh, I'm already set up as a CIC or a charity," and you're like, "Oh, okay." So you're just encouraging them to then work with other groups. So you might sort of say, "Oh, did you know this group over here run something?" And it's not that two groups can't exist. It's just that you don't want them competing all the time. You want them to complement each other. So that can be fine. But yeah, all of the networking that we do. So when I do a club, and each time at the beginning, people say who they are, what they do, and I say, "I'll pop your emails in the chat," and hopefully there, people are kind of, but all of that, it's not just like a waste of time doing that bit.
Yeah.
That is actually that is a real part of the meeting, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, to connect and to make sure you find like-minded people to connect with and share ideas, and hopefully can do that connection that will make both entities better and support each other. And I've been on some of those meetings, and I do find that you will have people who are basically doing the same thing. So I was at a workshop, and there were two people on there doing the same thing, making candles. And there are other people who are doing crafts together. I'm thinking, they're not competing against each other. They're having both the skills. Can they join together to make something greater? And then both of them can survive on that. You talk about AI in this, and I'm interested to hear your take on how AI is making a difference to what you do, or how is it impacting what you do? Is it taking over, or is it working alongside, helping you? How is AI?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more to know about it, but I've been organising some sessions for groups about how I can write grant-making applications, and I've got a lady coming along to do an in-person session, because there is that where the people meet the tech. So, like, a lot of what this organisation does is it does it all online. And so, but if the people are not getting on with that tech online, we need to do something where they actually get to meet a person, and the person's there looking over the computer, kind of going, "Oh, that's how you do that bit," and stuff like that, and helping them along. So I think that is a bit of a gap that I can help to fill, because it's not just we're suddenly going to know how to use AI. Groups need to actually have some help to even access it in the first place, to find out if it's any good for them. And it's developing very quickly, isn't it? So doing that, and then I've got a future event that I'm planning for November, hopefully, talking about digital in fundraising as a whole as well. So that will look at AI as part of it, but also digital more generally, because generally the charity sector, and when I say that, I mean like CICs and CIOs as well, but generally the sector isn't making the most of digital things that could help save them time. So when you said before about the funding, it isn't, and I said, "Oh, it's not just the funding, it's finance, it's HR, it's also digital as well."
Because a lot of people are not basically digitally inclined, maybe not, being able to use computers and have the basic computing skills that will then help them with AI.
Yeah, and it's not their fault either. Like when you're working, and I've worked for different size organisations, but when you're working by yourself and you've got an issue with your computer, in a bigger organisation, you'd phone up the IT department. I mean, that's just unheard of for a small group. So you're struggling by yourself. You're wondering how you can do it. is it even worth the amount of time to solve the problem, or do you just do it manually because you know, you've got limited time?
Yeah.
So that again I'm always trying to look for these little gaps for groups so that I can help to fill them. And it's such a privilege to be able to do that, because I've been the person sitting at the computer kind of going, oh, how do I do this? So to be able to do all the stuff that I do is amazing. I love my job because I'm helping people who are in a position that I used to be in myself.
So with that experience, you know what people are needing. Tell us some of the impact stories, some of the successes that you have heard of, that you have seen, that you have worked on, and I'm no doubt proud to be a part of.
Yeah, so impact for me means big long-term change overall. And I don't, I think we're starting to see that for the borough that I'm working in. But maybe outcomes like those steps towards impact, or where I can give more kind of concrete examples. So for one group, I helped them work on an application to Reaching Communities, which was successful, and they're now running a program that's multi-year, and it's going to help Black groups in particular with lots of the different things that we were talking about. So I'm really pleased with that, because I'm here to put myself out of a job in a way. I'm here to help those groups do it, and so they can go on and help other people. So that was really good. And I wasn't the only person that was part of that either. When we talk about having an impact, we've got to recognise that there are other players as well. So another group, there was a whole series of things that happened where they lost some funding and they weren't successful in some other funding that they were hoping to get. And the CEO left, not in a bad way, but life changes. And so I helped that group, and just recently heard that, and that support was kind of a bit coaching, a bit directional, a bit looking over applications, so different things. But yeah, I just heard that they got 117,000 over a series of years. So, I went to their away day the other day, and I helped facilitate a discussion about what their future is. And it was so nice. It was so nice to meet more people from the group. It was so nice to hear, like, they just had that breathing space to be able to think again, rather than survival, move to how can we continue to help people that we want to serve, and to think bigger. So how can we tweak what we currently do, and how can we even think, what's next? And they came up with all these amazing ideas. And when you're in survival mode, you haven't got that freedom to think like that.
So you talk about moving forward, and that impact that you're having, and a long-term goal. What is a long-term goal for you in terms of what you're this role?
Okay, yeah. So for me, so this hasn't been set by my funder. I've got a series of outcomes, including things like increased understanding around needs in order to raise more money, increase sustainability. But for me, I suppose my long-term goal would be, in relation to certain groups, to put myself out of a job, because they would have their own ability to fundraise. And that's why I did things like encouraged fundraising apprenticeships, because there's not enough fundraising skill in the borough.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that should be the aim of a lot of charities, actually, or CICs. The aim should almost be to put themselves out of a job, because they would, I know one group is to put an end to poverty.
Yeah.
Or whatever. That would be your ideal. But in a way, it's never. They talk about vision, it's never quite achievable. It's always a bit out of reach. But that's the point of it, isn't it? Because you're getting towards that goal, even if you're never going to realistically meet it. I don't think you're your vision necessarily has to always be smart, the R of realistic.
And in terms of what is next on the agenda in terms of charity and projects and work that you do, I know you just recently had a big conference for charity funders, and being part of that, I saw that there's a lot of minority ethnic group who are there. Would you say that there's an increase in, especially in the borough, where there are lots of BMEs groups popping up and wanting to be doing more for their local community?
Yeah, I've not necessarily seen stats on that, so this is just a personal view. But I see the borough as very vibrant, lots of groups bubbling up, and what will be the important thing is how we help those groups to either work with others or to maintain themselves and sustain themselves. I see lots of vibrancy in Lewisham, but yeah, and I think I might be slanted more towards global majority groups because that's part of my role, is to particularly support Black and disability groups. So I don't know whether I just see a lot of that, and you saw a lot of people from global majority at the conference because that's where I'm really targeting my work. Maybe there's a whole big wide world out there I've not spotted, but some of my work, I try and have some of it that is open to all, because I think that there's a real value in, like sharing ideas and cross-pollination and stuff like that. So, I want all the groups to mix up so that they know, different connections. It's about, oh, did you know that this and this exists, or whatever, or oh, there's a venue over here that you can get like cheap or for free, or if you do something for them, they'll do something for you, and we're all helping one another. And I think, that's what I quite like about the club on a Friday, that, you've got that everybody's welcome. It's an open door. And then there's some of the work that I do, the Fundraising Plus work that I do, which is specifically geared to disability groups.
If I'm not on those clubs and if I'm not a part of the group, do you think that these groups are represented well, are heard about in the community? Because when I'm on these clubs, I do hear about some organization, but I'm thinking, oh, that's a nice organization that didn't heard of them before, or even at a conference meeting people that I've never heard of before. What can be done to make sure that these people or these community groups are known or heard about, or publicized more?
Yeah, so from my point of view, I go to like lots of networking group meetings, and I poor people there, I spam the chat, and I'm like, here's my brochure, here's a link to this, so, and then if I'm giving it a chance, I'll have 5 minutes talking about it as well, so I go to network meetings. It's part of the Lewisham Local newsletter. I go to other people's newsletters as well, WhatsApps as well. I'm pushing it out there. On the WhatsApp, the fundraising WhatsApp, I've got a link so that I'm not in charge of, people can say, oh, can my friend come in? I'm like, yeah. The link, I post that regularly on there so anybody in that group can then invite other people along, as long as they're within the borough. So, I try and encourage those who are already in to let the people like bring a friend, a friend who's involved. So I'd say from my point of view, I'm doing all those different things, and a little bit of social media. I could probably improve. There are things that I can improve, but then also from the point of view of people in their networks as well, what can they do to similarly let people know about this? So as much as I'm telling like council people or third sector, the best advert is always somebody who says, oh, I've been to this club, it's really good, the lady there's a bit funny. but but you'll come along and you'll have a laugh and you'll learn something, and so yeah, if
And
anybody's listening.
and there's a directory where you can see, do you have a directory, a list of companies, groups, CICs, CIOs that are doing things that people can say, okay, I need something in childcare, if I need something in disability, if I need something in housing, I can always go and look at that.
Yeah, so that's part of a different person's work where I work, but yeah, that community directory is there.
Right, as we come down to wrapping up now, I'm going to make this quite easy because we talk a lot about work and, back in the days and so forth, but, we want to get a bit more about Karen. So what do you do for fun?
You know what? I burst out of bed this morning and I was so pleased, and I went to the kids, come on, get up, twinkle toes, come and look at all the surfaces I painted yesterday. So I felt very pleased with myself because I'd painted a hallway, and I painted this thing here. I painted a bit of that as well, actually. So this is a Welsh dresser. My old next door neighbour gave it to me, and painted it red to go with the rest of the things that I've got. So painting stuff, gardening. I quite like foraging as well. And I've planted some wild garlic, so I don't have to forage too far, just down the bottom of the garden. We've got chickens, so it's lovely going to pick up the eggs.
Okay.
So yeah, lots of different things for fun. Just meeting up with friends, doing our own, just dressing up and being silly. All of the above, lots of different things.
What's your favorite food?
Oh, you should have given me warning about this. I'm like my granddad. I've got a real sweet tooth, but I'm trying to curb it because of health. So yeah, I've recently because of the chickens, done a top banana meringues, right? So meringues use up lots of egg whites,
yes.
And then you've got all these egg yolks. You're like, what do I do with those? Well, I'll tell you, Craig. What you do, egg yolks, and you make a lemon curd to drizzle over the meringues.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
So lots of baking, just before the pandemic, I planned to get some chickens, and the pandemic happened and I haven't done that as yet. But now you say that I probably am encouraged to look back into that. What was your last book that you read?
See, I've got a couple on the go at the moment, so I'm trying to think of the last one I actually finished. Do you know what? I've got it over here. So this was my nan-in-law loved these books by Richard Osman, and I sometimes don't read murder mysteries just because I get a bit scared. It can make you paranoid. So but this one's quite gentle, and I wanted to read it just sort of to see what she'd been reading all those years. And I borrowed, and my mum had it, so I thought we could talk about it together as well. So yeah, and it's quite nice because it mentions places that I've known. So I'm reading that personally, and then with my daughter, I'm reading this book about unicorns, which you might think would be all kind of like, but these unicorns they're quite dangerous. So yeah, I'm reading a book about unicorns that we finished last night. So yeah.
Okay. And finally, movies. Best movie?
Matrix.
Okay.
Hands down.
All right. I've never watched that's one of the movie I've never watched. I heard a lot about it, but it's not one of those movies I ever watched. Just like 007s, I've never watched any of those. So not that I don't think they're interesting, it just never appealed to me. I love any movie, Mr. Beans, anything to do with to make me laugh. I'll do those movies, yeah. So now I'll give you a last word if you want to say, tell us about, where people can contact you if as a charity CIO or CIC, listening in and want to get connected and do more work with you. How can they connect with you?
Okay, cool. So yeah, today I've done the podcast as an individual person, but I work for Lewisham Local, and Karen at lewishamlocal.com is my work email. I've got a brochure that tells you all about all the different light touch support that I offer. And it's open to Lewisham CICs, CIOs, charities, or groups that are thinking of becoming one of those things.
And the last word in, any last advice to people, not necessarily just in terms of charity, but in terms of life. A special word to someone who is listening, watching. you probably want to say why you should always laugh and have fun like you do.
Yeah, that's one word on how to live your life, Craig. That's tricky, isn't it? Love.
Yeah, that's a very good word, because in everything that you do, if love is not there, then you won't be making a difference. Karen, I just want to thank you for the time. Thank you for sharing a bit of you, a bit of who you are and the work you're doing. And no doubt, I know you're making a great impact in terms of what you do. And it's always a pleasure being a part of your group and part of the club when I can be there. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's lovely to be with you, spend some time with you.
Thank you. And I thank you for watching and listening. And until the next episode, see you soon. Bye.